Welcome back to another Carl's Q&A. Today we are going to be answering questions about projectors for your golf simulator setup. So the first question we have today is, what is more important? Higher resolution or higher lumens? That's kind of a tough one to answer because some of it's going to come down to personal preference. Some of it will come down to your computer and what it's capable of handling, and some of it comes down to the space that you're going to be putting your setup in. A high resolution is definitely going to give you a better image quality, so a 4K compared to a 1080p. As long as your computer is capable of supporting a 4K setup, that 4K image is going to be clearer on the screen. If you get a 4K projector that has a lower lumen count, you want to make sure that you have very good control over ambient light in the space. If you've got an area that has ambient light around, higher lumens is going to be a better option because your image can get washed out on the screen. So even if you have a 4K image, you might not be able to see it because the area would just be too bright. So we found that sometimes having a good quality projector with a really bright lumen output and good color quality can make up for some of the lack of resolution that you would see going with a 1080p versus a 4K. So for example, through some of our projector testing that we've done, we found that some people here prefer, a really bright 1080p image compared to maybe a little less bright of a 4K. But really, a lot of it comes down to personal preference. So the next question we have is, why does my screen flicker in my playback footage when I'm using my swing cameras? So the reason that happens is because the refresh rate on your projector doesn't always sync up with the shutter speed from your swing cameras. And so when that happens, you can sometimes see lines on the screen or maybe a strobe effect. Depending on the camera and the software you're using, you might be able to try to adjust that shutter speed on the camera to try to minimize those effects, but that's not always possible, unfortunately. Next question is, I'm having trouble deciding where to mount my projector. Should I put it on the floor or the ceiling? That's really going to depend on the space in which it's going. Usually I'll try to recommend doing a ceiling mount when possible. I just think it gives a cleaner look to the space and helps to get the projector nice and up out of the way. If you do have to do a floor mount, you need to make sure you are selecting a projector with a nice short throw distance. And then usually people are going to get a protective case to put that projector in because that's going to be sitting on the floor, right in front of where you're swinging. So you definitely want to make sure you get a projector case to put that inside of. One note with the projectors that go on the floor, typically they will have, like I mentioned, a shorter throw distance, but at least with the ones that we currently offer, they also have a high, it's called vertical offset, which basically means with the ideal position of the projector, it would be either 16 inches, as an example, 16 inches above or below the screen, depending on if you're doing a floor or ceiling mount. Obviously, you can't mount a projector 16 inches below one of our screens. So that just requires that you have to tilt the projector more, which means that the throw distance is going to be affected and will get pushed backwards. And then you have to use keystone correction to get the image nice and square on the screen, which can potentially affect the clarity of the image. So that's just one thing to take into account if you are doing a floor mount, is the image clarity might be affected a little bit there. Where are the best locations for mounting a projector? So this is definitely something you want to pay attention to, because if you mount it incorrectly in relation to the golfer, you could end up with issues with the golfer hitting your projector with a swing. What we found works best is if you are able to get a projector mounted over the top of the golf ball or slightly behind, probably within I'd say usually 3 to 4 feet behind the golfer, that's going to minimize, basically eliminate the chance of hitting the projector with a club. Because if you think about your backswing and your follow through, the top 2 points of your swing, they aren't going in front of you where the golf ball would be. They're typically going to be arching behind you. And then having the projector within, like I said, about 3 to 4 feet of the golfer usually is going to minimize the chance of shadows showing up on the screen. Next question is, my projected image isn't filling my screen properly. How do I get my projector to fill the screen? The first thing you want to verify is your aspect ratio. Is your screen a standard or a non-standard aspect ratio? If it's standard, great. It'll make it a lot easier. If it's a non-standard aspect ratio, you're going to have a much tougher time filling that entire screen with an image. But let's just assume right now you've got a standard aspect ratio screen and your image isn't filling the entire area. First thing you want to do is make sure that your throw distance is correct for your projector. And that throw distance is the distance from the lens to the screen. If it's too close or too far away, your image will either be too small or too large, respectively, to be able to fill the screen. Next thing you want to do is make sure that your aspect ratio is set properly on your source. If you're using a PC, you can just go into your display settings and check what your resolutions are. Make sure your resolution is matching up with the aspect ratio for your screen. If you're running off of something like an iPad, typically you're going to be locked into the aspect ratio from your iPad. You won't have much adjustment available there. You can try tweaking the settings on your projector to see if you're able to set a aspect ratio through the projector. Unfortunately, that's not always going to be possible with an iPad though. And usually I'll recommend, when possible, adjust the settings on your computer and just leave your projector at its default settings, and that's going to help to get you the best image quality. So those are the things you want to check, the throw distance and aspect ratio being the two main ones, just to make sure that those are lining up with the requirements for your screen. And if your screen happens to be a non-standard aspect ratio, meaning it's not 4:3, 16:9, 16:10, there are ways that you can get an image to fill the entire screen still. It will involve going through and adjusting settings on your computer's graphics card. And we actually have a video showing that process, so make sure to check that out. What is the difference between a lamp, LED, and laser light source? Starting with a lamp, as the light source, typically they are going to be some of the lower cost projectors that are out there. Depending on the projector that you select, it can start off nice and bright, but over time that lamp is going to start to dim, and eventually it's just going to fade out and you'll need to replace it, which is one of the nice things about a lamp projector. Is oftentimes you can just contact your projector's manufacturer, buy a new bulb and swap it in and get a nice bright lamp out of it again. Looking at LED projectors, typically they are going to cost a bit more than a lamp projector. So if you want to get a similar, say a 3000 lumen lamp projector, that'll be lower cost than a 3000 lumen LED projector would be. The brightness of that LED is going to be much more consistent than a lamp will, and you're not going to see it fade over time like you will with a lamp projector. And in general, LED projectors tend to have a higher level of color accuracy than a lamp projector because their light source doesn't fade over time. And finally, we have laser projectors. Laser projectors are going to tend to be the most color accurate, lowest maintenance, because they typically are sealed and don't allow dust to get inside like some other projectors might that would require cleaning. They're also going to have the longest lifespan, with most laser projectors advertising 20 to 30,000 hours of life. So with all that being said, which one is the best? Well, it's really going to come down to what you think is going to work best for you and what your budget is. And really, we've seen excellent quality projectors with all three of those light sources. So just make sure you're doing research and selecting a projector that's going to work best for your situation. Why is lens shift so expensive, and is it worth it? So if you don't know, lens shift is a way to be able to move the entire image from your projector without moving the projector itself. And there's a lot more mechanical components that goes into the construction of the projector that allows you to physically shift that lens inside of the projector to allow you to control your image. And so it's a more complicated setup, so a lot more goes into the construction of it. That's going to raise the price of it, unfortunately. The benefit of using lens shift over keystone is when you're using keystone correction, you're going to be deleting actual pixels off of your image, which can reduce the image quality. Whereas using lens shift, you're still getting that same image on the screen, you're just physically moving the projected image using those dials on your projector. Our next question is, do I need multiple projectors for use with a curved screen? So it is possible to do a single projector with a curved screen. You just need to make sure you are selecting the right projector for the job. The three projectors that we currently offer that we found work well with our curved screen are the LG ProBeam BU53RG, the BenQ LK936ST, and the BenQ AK700ST. These three projectors are all going to have screen warping technology built right into the projector, so you can manipulate that image and get it to fit perfectly on your screen. We have another video that shows that process and what you need to do to get that image on your screen, so I recommend checking that out. So that was all of our questions we had today for projectors. If you have any others for us, please let us know in the comments below, and we will see you in the next one.